Welcome, everybody, to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of PunchdrunkCritics.com, and look at my background. Clearly, we're talking about superhero movies of 2022. And joining me for the first time, I'm really happy about this, actually, Jamie Broadnax of Black Girl Nerds. Welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm
Yeah,
glad to finally do this with you, Travis. I know that I've been covering your work for quite some time, so
that's
can't wait
very
to
nice
talk
of you to
movies.
say. It's very nice of you to say. And I've enjoyed your work as well. So it's just really cool to
Thanks.
have you on here for this. So we're just gonna talk about the superhero movies that came out this year, what was good, what stunk, and some of the chaos that came towards the end of the year. So let's just run through these in chronological order here. We'll start with Marvel. And Marvel started off, and this was sort of a Marvel movie, but it's a Sony Marvel movie, and it is the unfortunate Morbius, which started off things this year for, for Marvel and Sony, with Jared Leto as Michael Morbius, the guy who was an idiot and experimented on bats and turned himself into some sort of a vampire-like creature, becomes an anti-hero, blah 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 blah. And I never understood why, Jamie, why anybody wanted to make a Morbius movie to begin with. Like, anybody who's read comics knows Morbius is not that interesting, not really, and he's not the kind of character that screams, "Hey, make a movie out of me." And from the very beginning, I was like, "Well, this probably won't work." And then they cast Jared Leto, and I was like, "Oh, I know it won't work because Jared Leto movies don't ever make any money. It doesn't matter what he's in or what he's doing. Jared Leto movies always bomb, and he's always terrible in them." So I knew this wasn't going to work. But what were your thoughts on Morbius? Maybe you liked it more than I did. I don't know, but I thought this was a terrible way to kind of for Sony to expand on their already limited Spider-Man universe outside of Venom. I thought this was a bad way to go.
Yeah, well, to give Jared Leto a little bit of credit, he was
Somebody
really
else, you do it.
he was really good in, and it's not a movie, but it was a TV show, the WeWork scandal
Yes,
with Adam
it's
Newman,
not
where
that
he played that.
I'm not saying that he's a bad actor in general.
No, no.
It's just that when he makes a movie, he will almost all for me, this is how it works. He will almost always find the way to play that role in the way that the most people possible will hate it. Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the role is. Like, he will find a way to make it. Like, he'll play the Joker. He'll play it the one way that makes you say, "Well, this Joker stinks." Everybody else plays the Joker, and they love it. It doesn't matter who plays the Joker. People love the Joker, but he
Yeah.
plays the Joker, and people are like, "This Joker's terrible."
And
But
it's so bad that he like that performance was so terrible, and the depths and the lengths that he went to prepare for that role.
I
I'm sure
know.
you heard about the horror stories around him
Yes.
playing Joker. But yeah, you know what? Morbius was not good. I waited a while to see it. I actually was very late to screening it just because I had heard from my colleagues that it was bad, and just like friends of mine that saw it in the theaters, they were like, it's bad. So whenever I get that, overall consensus amongst friends and colleagues that a movie's bad, it takes me a while to watch it. But I agree wholeheartedly. It just wasn't good. And even Matt Smith, as incredible of a
Yeah.
performance artist that he couldn't even save this movie. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nobody could save Morbius. Is unfortunate. And I imagine that we won't be getting any sequels to Morbius. I don't care what Jared Leto tries to conjure up.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it bombed, right? It
it
didn't.
bombed. It did not do
Yeah.
well. I don't remember what his box office total was. I didn't keep it here in front of me, but it did not do well. So
Yeah.
no, it's not going anywhere. A lot of that going around this year, actually. But the next
Yeah.
movie from Marvel was not a movie that bombed. It was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
Mhm.
Uh, Although I would say that this one, I at least amongst my circle, this one had sort of a split reaction. Like, and there weren't as many people
Yes.
that loved this movie the way they really liked the first one. They found this one to be a little bit weird. I kind of liked it because it was weird and because it was Sam Raimi weird. It felt like a Sam Raimi movie, which I was like, if you're gonna get Sam Raimi to do your movie, I want it to feel like a Sam Raimi movie. But I don't know if that necessarily works in a Marvel context in terms of like larger fans who may not know what a Sam Raimi movie looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Spider-Man movies didn't feel very Sam Raimi-ish to
True.
me.
He
But yes,
very
this movie definitely felt like a Sam Raimi movie, as it should, because there are, the dark arts and fantasy and magic and all of that was infused to it. I was a little concerned at the beginning when they were going to switch up directors because Scott Derrickson was announced to actually
yeah
direct it, and then they switched it. I was like, uh-oh, that's a bad sign.
yeah.
But overall, I really enjoyed Multiverse of Madness. I know, like you said, it was split. I know people that absolutely hated it. I know people that loved it. I didn't have any issues with it. Aside from some of the disjointed storytelling of Wanda's story, I thought it was actually a pretty good movie, and it was very compelling to see you know, oh gosh, his name is just all of a sudden escaping me. Benedict Cumberbatch doing like a two-hander with the
Yeah.
actress that was the
They played America Chavez. Yeah.
America Chavez. Yeah. So it was nice to see that little two-hander in this film. So I enjoyed it.
Agreed. And Cumberbatch, I find this is the role where he's the funniest. Like he's
Yes.
really funny in this role. And like I find like a lot of his characters, a lot of his genius characters to be like very similar. Like they all kind of play the same to me. But I kind of feel that way about Eddie Redmayne. He plays genius characters. They all kind of play the same to me. But when he gets to do funny, Cumberbatch is really good at it, and he's found a groove as Doctor Strange, being really really kind of funny in this. And I also agree. I like the addition of America Chavez.
Yeah.
Um, I like the way this movie fit into the overall multiverse saga that they're telling with that Marvel's telling right now. This movie was a really key piece of that puzzle. And in a year for Marvel that was sort of weird in a way. Like
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the next movie now. That's another people were split on that one too. I thought this one was probably did a really good job of fitting into this phase. But the next movie was Thor: Love and Thunder for
Mm.
Marvel, which is another movie that I've seen a lot of split reaction to. And it was so funny to see the same people who were adoring Taika Waititi after Thor Ragnarok really turned on him in this one, kind of. Like they were
I'm
like,
telling fandom culture is something else.
it's crazy, right? It's like they just immediately were like, oh, all of a sudden we're sick of Taika and the type of movies that he does. It's like you wanted him back to do a fourth one, and now this is all of a sudden you guys hate him again. It's like what's going on?
I thought, first of all, I love Taika Waititi. I think he does great work as a filmmaker. And I loved Thor Ragnarok. That was actually one of my favorite movies of that year.
Yeah.
I do feel like Love and Thunder was a miss. And I feel like they were a little too heavy-handed on the comedy.
Mm.
And Thor, to me, is not a character that, obviously, he's not really known for comedy. But
Yeah.
even when he does play the comedy line, it doesn't always hit. Kind of comparing him to like Star-Lord, Chris Pratt's character in the Guardians movies. Like he's more funny and more compelling in that role, but Chris Hemsworth as Thor, not so much. And it's okay to have these one zingers here and there. But to make it so heavy-handed throughout the movie where he's basically just this slapstick of a character,
Yeah.
I don't think really works. And I think that that's what sort of failed with Love and Thunder for me.
I kind of agree with that, and it's like the difference between Thor and Star Lord. Star Lord is always portrayed as sort of a moron, and like in these movies, at least in the MCU, he's kind of a
Exactly.
moron. Whereas Thor, and they kind of walk this weird balance with him. Like in these movies, like the first two movies, he's very straight laced Thor, and I found that Thor was funniest when he didn't realize he was being weird, like to everybody else, because he's a god walking amongst people who aren't. Like
Right.
that's the humor of Thor. That's the humor of Thor. But
Yes.
the Taika movies are very Taika. Like they're very
Yes.
much like his New Zealand movies. Like if you ever watched any of them, the humor is very much like that. And I don't know if that necessarily fits the character very well, because then you have to bring him back into the fold for like Avengers movies and his other appearances where you're like, is he still silly Thor? Like
Right.
I don't know,
Right.
I don't know if that works necessarily. Like Taika probably won't do any more Marvel movies, most likely. And it's like, but Chris Hemsworth is still around as Thor. So like, what happens? Like, does he go back to being goofy Thor? Or does he go back to being normal Thor? It just, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I really enjoyed Ragnarok, and I thought that the comedy blended in well. And I don't know, maybe because of like what you said before, that when he's sort of being made fun of and he's not being the joker,
Yeah,
he's the jokey, then it makes it more of an interesting comedy. But in Love and Thunder, it just kind of wasn't that. And also, the story in and of itself just kind of fell flat for me. I mean, essentially, it's like a love story, and the villain was not compelling at all. So there were other elements of the film that also was a miss for me.
yeah,
But I'm fine with them towing the comedy line with Thor, because it really was refreshing for the whole entire franchise when Ragnarok came out.
absolutely.
So I really don't want them to bring on like Kenneth Branagh or another director back to do the Thor movies. I think Taika is still a good fit. They just have to dial it down a little bit with the comedy.
I don't know if Taika will come back with something where he's asked to dial it down now. That's the thing. I think they'll have to bring in something else. Most likely.
Yeah.
Next up for Marvel was they had three movies this year. And the next one was, of course, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And like I said, this was kind of a weird year for Marvel because you had these two movies that are very much in the multiverse saga, and you had this film which kind of felt like an outlier. And I think it's
Yes.
because look, this was the Chad Boseman movie, right? Like this is the movie that we were all waiting for that reason alone, that reason alone. I don't think any of us were really thinking about anything else outside of it, other than how are you going to treat Chadwick Boseman in this movie? And it kind of felt like it was off in its own little world. And I think they did a fantastic job of making a movie that I honestly didn't think they were going to even do a sequel for a while. Like I was like, because wrestled with myself, like, how do you do it? And Ryan Coogler did it the only way you could, which is by making it a cathartic experience for everyone, everyone in the audience who's watching it. So you could kind of get your feelings out about it and get an exciting story that is wrapped up in T'Challa's life without it having to be directly about him. And I thought it was a perfect way to tell this story if you're going to tell it. But what were your thoughts on Wakanda Forever?
I went in with the expectation knowing that this is not going to be your typical Black Panther movie, and this is not even going to be your typical Marvel movie.
Right.
So once you go in with that expectation, in my mind, and hopefully for other people, it exceeded your expectations because as I've written in my review, and as I've said many times, having these conversations around this film, it was a love letter to Chadwick Boseman. That's what Ryan Coogler wanted. That's really kind of essentially what everyone around him that was in charge of creating this film wanted to do. They just wanted to do a nice send off for Chadwick. So knowing that at the start, I don't think it's a film that's going to disappoint. In my opinion, I rated it on my top list for 2022. It's one of my favorite films of the year. And I thought that it was done with grace. It was handled beautifully. And, I think people, obviously from the end credit scene, I think people will be everybody will be satisfied from whatever faction you belong to, whether you're pro Chala or
Yeah.
pro, this or that. You'll come away pretty satisfied. And yeah, I thought they did a fantastic job with Wakanda Forever.
Yeah. And let me ask you, because I've never had a chance to talk to you about the movie before. Let me ask you a couple of questions on what you think about what the future holds for Black Panther, because I'm of the belief that is no everybody's seen the movie at this point. Sure, he's not going to stay as Black Panther for long.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
don't think Marvel is putting all their eggs in the Letitia Wright basket for a number of reasons. But I just don't think it's gonna I don't think it's gonna happen. But you foresee that as well, like her time as Black Panther is probably going to be short.
I feel like I guess this is spoiler, right?
Yeah.
Spoiler show. Okay, so
Anybody who has seen the movie by now, you just short. That's just it's too
yeah, you should have watched Wakanda Forever by now. Shame on
exactly
you if you haven't.
exactly.
I mean, I think the post credit scene where we see that T'Challa has a son, I feel like, in my opinion, that's probably going to be where the mantle will be passed next. We'll see. I mean, there's timelines involved that can make that a little bit challenging, but you're right. I don't foresee Letitia Wright as Shuri for very long. But to be fair, in the comics, she didn't have that long of
Right.
a period where she had the mantle. So it's to be expected. But I did enjoy seeing her take on the mantle. I enjoyed seeing her character arc and how she's dealing with a lot of different emotions. And I thought Letitia Wright did a fantastic job as a performer in this film,
Me too.
along with Angela Bassett, who, by the way, I'm
Angela
glad that
Bassett
she's like an awards
needs
contender
her
right now.
Oscar nomination for this performance, I think.
Please, it just
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that we'll definitely see Shuri be a prominent figure in the Black Panther universe. It would be weird if they didn't have Letitia Wright around. I know that there's been controversy around the production and all of that, but as far as the mantle goes, they're definitely going to hand it over to a male heir.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see there being a fairly significant time jump between the next couple movies, and in which his son will be nearly of age, and to which he could actually don the mantle himself. I don't see that they could easily get around any problems in terms of timelines.
Right.
I also seem to be a little bit disappointed that the movie hasn't reached the same kind of box office heights as the first movie did, but to me, when I first saw Wakanda Forever, my first reaction coming out of it was nobody's going to sit through this multiple times the way they did the first movie, because
Yes.
this one is such a more emotional journey. I felt exhausted after watching it, and I was like, not many people are going to be able to do that again. Like the first one, like me and my friends and my family who never go to see anything, well, you go see it multiple times because it was just a fun kind of a joyous experience. This one is like more taxing, and it's not, doesn't mean it's bad. It's not, it's great. It's in my top 20 as well. I'm working on that as well, like when I'm not here doing this. But it's like you just feel so much more exhausted afterwards because it's such an emotionally draining film, that I
Yeah,
just couldn't see people want to say, I'm going to go watch that again. I just didn't see that happen.
I agree with that. Did it open in China, Wakanda
I'm not so
Forever?
sure if this one got China or not. I hope it did, but I really don't know.
Okay, because I know that obviously the first film did, and I know China has a huge impact on box
Absolutely.
office receipts. So if it didn't open in China, that probably might account for why it didn't perform as well. But I don't know. I wonder too if there's a lot of films that performed as well as they did pre-COVID. I don't know if that.
Nothing's the same pre-COVID. Like even as we're talking about superhero movies right now, Avatar, which is doing amazing,
Yeah,
it's not going to hit 2.7 billion because it's just things are different after COVID.
right.
Just don't go to movies the same way they do. You got to totally rework the way you think about what's a hit and what's not. And at
Hmm.
some point, studios are going to have to be like, well, we can't have a budget that's $300 million anymore. Uh, at some point, they'll have to learn that, but they're not there yet, apparently.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's the last of the Marvel movies that came out this year. They also did a few TV shows. I don't know how many of those you watched this year. They had Moon Knight, they had She-Hulk, they had Miss Marvel, and they had a couple of specials, both of which I liked. And I think you did not like one, Werewolf by Night.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, that was a movie, but yeah,
well,
yeah.
they're calling it a movie, but it was a special. It
It
was
was
a
a spot. Yeah.
hour-long special, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I liked virtually all of those, with the exception of Moon Knight, which I couldn't really get into the way I wanted
Same.
to.
Same.
Yeah, but we don't really need to talk about those. Those are just things that happened.
Yeah.
More Marvel stuff that happened in 2022. All right, let's move over to, and not, we shouldn't just say that all superhero movies came out this year were all Marvel and DC. There were a couple others that came out. Not really going to spend a lot of time on those, like Secret Headquarters with Owen Wilson. I never did watch that. Did you watch that?
No, I didn't.
I didn't watch it either because it looked like Spy Kids to me, and I don't like Spy Kids.
Yeah.
Um, and then there was a Samaritan with Sylvester Stallone,
Yeah, I didn't
which
see that one either.
I did like, even though I it's probably not gonna be for everybody. It's a little bit dark and grim. But I did enjoy it anyway because I like dark and grim and I like Sly Stallone. All right, so let's move over to DC. DC had a very interesting year that got off to a really hot start
Mm.
with The Batman, which is going to be, I'm just going to say it right now, it's going to be in my top 10 of the year. I love The Batman. I think it's the best Batman film to come out in ages. I like it even better than the Nolan ones, which I adore. I love
Wow.
them. I like this one better just because it's different. That was a different approach, seeing a younger, inexperienced Batman. I just wanted to see a different Batman because everybody does the same kind of Batman. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
So I want to see a different Batman, and I like Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne. I didn't think I would. because I'm not a huge
Same.
Robert Pattinson fan, but he sold me on it. Um, I was really into this from start to finish. I think I saw it 2 or 3 times. I really loved it, and it was a really good way for DC to begin the year because it filled the year with some promise that that they're starting to get their shit under control now. And well, we'll get to what happens later, but this was a good start with it with the Batman, I thought.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's also, we put out a list on Black Girl Nerds of our top films of 2022. The Batman was on our list.
Yes.
Uh, Brilliant film, brilliant cinematography, performance, direction, all across the board. I agree with you on Robert Pattinson. At first, I wasn't sold. I was like, they're gonna get the guy from the Twilight movies to play Bruce Wayne, but he nailed it out of the park. And one thing I found out recently, which I didn't know prior to or during the time I was watching it, was that his character is based on Kurt Cobain, or inspired by Kurt Cobain. So I thought that was very interesting because for the first time we get to see like a more emo
Mhm.
gothic Bruce Wayne, as we should. I mean, it's a very dark story. He is the Dark Knight. So yeah, it was just absolutely an amazing film. And just knowing that like his character was inspired by Kurt Cobain, and they play that very melancholic music with that Something in the Way, I think,
Yeah,
song by
yeah.
Nirvana. It just, that was another thing. The music was like another character.
Oh man,
um
so good.
it was so good. And seeing Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, I thought she did a fantastic job.
I mean,
I thought she did a
she's my
really,
favorite
really good
Catwoman.
job.
I mean, I'll say
Yeah.
she's definitely my favorite Catwoman. I watch Zoe Kravitz in anything, but
Yeah.
yeah, she's a great Catwoman. I thought Paul Dano's Riddler was super creepy, like especially his introduction when we first see
Absolutely.
him is
And
like,
Colin Farrell was the Penguin. Oh my gosh. I did
yeah,
not even know, because I didn't really read up much on the Batman prior to watching it. So I had to stay back for the credits and see, okay, who played the Penguin? That was really Colin Farrell. So yeah, he did. I know he's in the awards conversation for the
Banshees.
Banshees of Inisherin, but the Batman also should be something that people should be talking about, because he did
Yeah,
the damn thing in that.
it's been a great year for Colin Farrell, actually. Really
Yeah.
good year for him,
Yeah.
which I always liked him, so I'm glad to see that. But yeah, this movie's brilliant. I can't wait to see what they do for the inevitable sequel. And I still
Yes.
look, I still have this. I still feel like I know they're saying they're not going to do it. I still feel like they're going to try and mix his Batman into the whole overall thing, like the whole overall DCU. I feel like
The
they're going to try. Even though
Yeah,
I think
I
they'll keep
would.
asking until Matt Reeves is like, okay, fine, Jesus Christ.
I mean, I would love. I don't know if they're going to do it either, because I think they said that they're trying to completely isolate the Joker from that universe. But I would love to see Joaquin Phoenix and Robert Pattinson together on the screen.
Oh,
That would just be
yes,
so amazing, because they're both emo. It's
yes.
like emo sensory overload.
Plus,
So
those
we'll
things,
see.
those two movies, that and Joker, just feel thematically like they're in sync. Like it just feels like they
Yes.
should be in the same universe. And I'm like, I can't believe that they haven't already done it. Like it's like, come on, man. But maybe that's just too obvious, maybe it's just too obvious. So
Yeah.
next up for Warner Brothers, a movie I didn't actually see was DC League of Super Pets. Did you see that one?
I didn't. I'm bad when it comes to the animated films,
Me
not
too.
because I
I
don't
didn't
like
used to be.
them. I just put other films on my priority list, and then animated
I
films kind
always
of go at the bottom.
I always pawned
So
them off on somebody else to write, like every time. Every time. And I didn't used to be that way, but now I am. So it's just like I don't know what happened. Somewhere along the way, I just kind of like, yeah, somebody else can do that. Unless it's like
yeah.
Dragon Ball. Like if it's Dragon Ball, I'll
Okay.
probably do it. But if it's something else, I'm like, you can somebody else can do that. So yeah, I never did got in it, but it did well at the box office though. From what I hear, and from everyone I know who saw it, really did enjoy it. And I do intend to watch it one of these days when I've
Same.
got a spare 90 minutes or whatever it is, just laying around somewhere. I'm like, okay, I find out watching it. And then we got to the shit show,
Ah,
which is Black Adam.
woo boy.
Black Adam. Look, I'm gonna say I probably like Black Adam more than most, but it's just that you know, The Rock has been talking up this movie for damn near a decade. I've heard that changing the hierarchy of power line of his so many times. I probably have nightmares about it. Like he just so much talk about what this movie was going to do, what it was going to be. Great. I've been a fan of The Rock. I was born on professional wrestling. I've been a Rock fan of The Rock all of his career, and I've enjoyed watching him explode and become what he is now. And I put my faith in him that Black Adam was going to do all the things that he kept talking about that it was going to do, and it didn't do any of it. The movie itself, I did not think it's terrible. It introduced my second favorite all time comic book team into the world, which is JSA. I love the JSA. And I think Aldous Hodge's Hawkman better survive everything else that's going on with DCU right now. But Black Adam, critics didn't really dig it. Fans didn't really get into it. It got blasted out of the water by Black Panther within a week. And then
The Rock said congratulations.
And The Rock said congratulations. Which I gotta say is magnanimous for him. He usually doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the movie didn't do any of the things that he promised. It was overpromised, and it didn't live up. So I mean, it's disappointing, and it kind of brought the whole DCU not to an end, but
it made us feel familiar with what we know DC movies to be. I would say that, because like the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker sort of was like, okay, maybe there's a chance here. Maybe the DC movies are going to be really good. And then this comes, and then we're like, oh, okay, we're back to Man of Steel again. All right.
Can't string together enough victories in a row. Like there are little things in there that I love. Like I love Birds of Prey, and I like the Suicide Squad movies. I like both of them in a way. The first one's not nearly as good as the second one. There are little things in there that I really enjoy out of the DCU, and then it's like they just never live up to anything. Like every single time, like they never can be everything that they should be, considering these are the most popular and famous characters in the world, more famous and more popular than Marvel's characters by far, with more of a history. And it's like,
longer history. Yeah.
Why can't they do it? Why can't they do it?
I mean, I think the problem with the DCEU is, first of all, it's very disjointed. You know, the difference between what Kevin Feige has done with Marvel and, well, hopefully James Gunn will be able to course correct. But it's so disjointed. I mean, like, for example, The Flash, we've got a Barry Allen played by Grant Gustin in the TV realm, and then we've got Ezra Miller in the cinematic universe. And it's like, why do we have two different actors playing this role? So it just seems like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing in DCEU, and their movies just don't really flow that well. And it's unfortunate because, like you said, they have characters that we've known historically for a long time. Dare I say, more popular characters in the DC universe than in Marvel.
If you don't read comic books, you still know Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman.
You still know Superman and Wonder Woman, absolutely, and Batman, absolutely. But yeah, Black Adam was actually on my worst list. It was not. It was not good.
The Rock's not going to like that. He watches this show, so I mean, he's going to be.
Oh, does he? Okay. Well, listen, Mr. Johnson. This might get me canceled by him and his camp. They might not offer interviews for our outlet after this. I would say this. I love The Rock just like you. I grew up on WWE, and even back in the day when it was WWF and then NWA. And so I'm an old school wrestling head. So I remember when The Rock was in wrestling, and I've loved his career. I think as an actor, in my opinion, he doesn't have the charisma, and he's not as interesting in a lot of the movies that I've seen him in. So when I heard that he was cast as Black Adam, I'm like, okay, maybe he can turn this around. And then when I watched it, it was the same old formula. It was like The Rock being The Rock. Right. So that's another part of it. Is I really wish that they would find actors that are, more charismatic, interesting, compelling to play these roles, because I just don't think The Rock really delivers on that big superhero level, even though he's a larger than life movie star. I just don't think that this is sort of for him.
The problem with The Rock, and listen to me talking about telling The Rock what his problem is. Um, his biceps are bigger than my entire body. It's just like he's one of those actors who has a very carefully curated idea of what his public persona is going to be. So it's like,
Yeah,
so when he picks a role, the role inevitably always ends up being fundamentally the same because it's who he envisions himself as, and that's
true.
who he's always going to play. There's almost never any variation on it. There might be a few more jokes, like in like Jungle Cruise or something, but fundamentally the character is almost always the same, and it's probably
Yes.
always going to be that way for him. I mean, it's not going to stop him from being a success, obviously, but it's just like if you're looking to him to like to build something new, kind of like to see him do something new. I don't know if you're really going to get that from him ever. So, you know,
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, if
yeah,
that works, because I mean he's obviously very successful, then that's
yeah,
fine. It's just it might not work in every genre and
yeah.
in every franchise, and I just think it kind of missed. And also the story in and of itself just felt very disjointed to me. The characters weren't really that interesting and compelling, even though I love Aldous Hodge, I love Quintessa Swindell, and then the new guy, no, he's in that show The Recruit, which is amazing. Like he was
I just binged the entire thing like over
so
the week.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but it just it felt flat for me. So
I liked certain aspects of it. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed it more than most. I like the fact that they established Black Adam in Kandahar, and I thought that this is sort of his place. And I
yeah,
liked that. Like that was something that they hadn't really done before. You kind of Batman kind of has his Gotham, and Aquaman has the seas, and but it's good to see
Atlantis.
him have a place that's his, and that he could be the defender of its people. And I thought they tried to add some sort of some contemporary context to it. And I thought
Yeah.
it was a good idea. In general, that would be a good idea to expand on. Unfortunately, we're not going to get that expansion because right after the movie, they were like, "Yeah, this ain't doing so great. So let's start something new and give it over to James James Gunn and Peter Safran." And the shit show really wasn't necessarily just the movie itself. The shit show was what everything that followed after, where The Rock continued to pretend that he had like all this stroke at Warner Brothers. And it's like, oh, this stuff is all just a bunch of noise and nothing's going to change for us, blah, 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 blah. I got Henry Cavill back. He started talking about that stuff. I guess, I really pushed him to get Henry Cavill back and even try to make it seem like all that stuff that he set into motion was still going to happen no matter what happened around him. And somebody has slapped him with the cold, dead fish of reality. Not too long later, when they're like, yeah, no more Black Adam, no more Henry Cavill, everything's starting over here. Not necessarily everything, but 2023 is starting to look like a dead year. Like,
What is your opinion? I'm curious to know what is your opinions about them dropping Henry Cavill as Superman? Because a lot
I
of people were
yeah,
very
there are a
emotionally
lot of people very
struck by
upset
that
about it.
news.
A lot of
Yeah,
people are very upset about it. I was following the fire James Gunn and Peter Safran hashtag
I
on
saw that
all
too. Yeah.
weekend. It was just they were going nuts this weekend. And look, there's a part of me that's sort of got a mixed, I mean, sort of mixed emotions thing. I really like Henry Cavill as Superman. I enjoyed Man of Steel. I like him as Superman. I was happy when he came back and looked like he was coming back for good. I was happy about that.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there's that part of me that's like, can we just flush everything from the Zack Snyder era down the drain? And I know there are good things that emerged out of it, like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I think she's great. I like her. I like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. There are things that I like that emerged out of it, but I kind of just want, at this point, because nothing has really worked the way it should have. Starting over sounds like it's probably the smart idea. Just start over. You know, yeah. Will I miss those things? Yeah, but they're not gone. I can still go back and watch them if I want to. But in terms of like starting a new universe, it feels like it's just time to move on and just let it all go.
I
And
agree
maybe
with
that'll shut up all those people too. Like if they just like, you know what, we're moving forward and that's just it. Maybe all those people will go away and find something else to get angry about.
I mean, they're going to find something else to get angry about because that's the internet.
Yeah.
And as long as the social media apps reward you for retweets and shares and likes for saying stupid stuff, then people will continue to do that. But I agree with you. I think that James Gunn taking the wheel on this, taking the steering wheel on this is a great idea. I like the idea of a reset. I'm not mad at Henry Cavill being replaced. I think Henry's going to be okay. I heard
Oh
rumors
yeah,
that maybe he could be in the Warhammer,
yeah, he's gonna
franchise that's
be in
coming up.
Warhammer. Yep.
Perfect. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to leap into another project that we're all gonna,
He'll
go
probably be
goo
in
goo
a
eyes
Marvel.
over, and
He'll
it'll be
probably be in
fine.
a Marvel movie in a year. Like he'll like you think
I
Marvel's not sitting back looking at this like we can get him for Captain Britain, right? Can we get him for something, right?
Captain Britain would be, yeah, Brian Braddock. Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
I have a theory that James Gunn had a conversation with Kevin Feige, because obviously they're close from his work on the Guardians films, and was like, look, we're going to be dropping Henry Cavill, but maybe in the future, if there's a way you can add him into the universe,
Yeah.
make that happen, because we feel really bad about this, but
They're
we're
gonna
trying
do
to
a
do a
one for one
reset.
swap. It's gonna be
So
Henry Cavill for Dave Batista. Dave Batista is gonna go over to DC like he's been wanting to do. Henry
yep,
Cavill can go over to Marvel. They just do a one for one swap.
I feel like James Gunn is going to have his back because of the decision that he had to make, and Henry will be okay at the end of the day. So this whole fire James Gunn nonsense, stop that, y'all.
He was
Stop it.
fired. He ain't done anything yet.
Exactly. It's like, give him that is the worst thing about fandoms. We always go, because remember how we treated Heath Ledger for Joker. Remember the way people just threw so much vitriol at Heath Ledger playing Joker, and we were like blown away by his performance. So
Yeah.
fans, you got to give these actors, these producers, these filmmakers a chance, because I have 110% faith in James Gunn, because the Suicide Squad was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And he's already demonstrated that he can change the formula and make some really cool substantive stories. And obviously the Guardians movies are some of the most successful films out of the Marvel franchise.
Talk about taking it
So
that
I
nobody had heard of and turning it into something that everybody loves. I have a
that
I mean, geez,
you
I
can
mean,
never
everybody,
make that excuse that, like, oh well, it's a comic book character that nobody knows, so that's why Black Adam didn't do well. Okay, well, what about the Guardians of the
right,
Galaxy?
exactly.
Nobody knew about them. I wouldn't say nobody, but like, they were like a third tier Marvel ensemble, and look at
They're
those
they're
films.
they're like what I was saying about Morbius. You think about like nobody really thinks about Morbius as somebody you'd make a movie out of. Nobody really thought about Guardians of the Galaxy that way either. And I remember when they first said that they're doing Guardians of the Galaxy, I was like, really?
Something went wrong.
Yeah, that's right, Google.
Try
Something
again
did
in
go
the
wrong.
future.
Uh, my Google Nest does that randomly, and I don't even know why. But yeah, but he turned that into like one of Marvel's biggest franchises, and people are going to be really sad when he's gone from Marvel. I think because I think James Gunn's had
Yeah,
a huge impact on the MCU
huge.
more than people know, and when he's gone, they're going to be like, "Damn, I wish he was still around making movies for Marvel too."
And he was the only director that could make the Marvel movies, the comedy aspect of Marvel movies, actually hit. Like it made sense, it resonates, it's funny. Like, I know we haven't talked about it, but the holiday special, that was actually like
So
one of,
great.
next to Black Panther, it was like one of my favorite movies of the year.
It's so great. It's
So
so great.
great.
It's so fun and lighthearted, but has a
Yeah,
couple of like really deep emotional moments to it as well. It's so
exactly.
good. So
It,
good. I love it. Love
exactly,
it, love it, love it.
exactly.
Yeah.
So taking something as basic as like the typical plot line where, oh, we're gonna do something great for our friend and we're gonna go get a gift for them, but we're gonna go through all of these different shenanigans and misadventures, and it's so saccharine filled and just so funny. And of course, having Drax and Mantis at the center of that, which I was so glad that they kind of had their own moment,
Yeah.
was
Especially
just
since he's about to
perfect.
die. Especially since he's about to get killed.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
about to get killed off. So good to get your moment in now.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, James Gunn knows what he's doing at the end of the day. So
Yeah, James Gunn's the man. I love James Gunn, so I can't wait to see what he does for DC because I think he could do some really great things for them, just like he's done for Marvel. But it does make 2023 seem a little bit weird though for DC. Like they've got a bunch of movies coming out. Like they got Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, they've got The Flash, they got Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and
sheesh.
They got they got Blue Beetle. They got a bunch of movies coming out this year, and
Yeah.
without knowing the fate of the universe, these movies kind of feel like dead ends right now, which is odd.
And also, we just need to pour a 40 ounce for Batgirl, because
I
that could
know.
have been in 2023, but I
I
guess
was really sad about that.
DC doesn't have any faith in some of their properties, which is I don't understand how you make a full entire movie and it goes from beginning to end and then you decide to shelve it.
Yeah, I don't
But
buy it.
yeah, I mean it anyways. But yeah, 2023 looks like it's going to be an interesting year. I am going to be very fascinated around the press tour for Flash, because that will be I mean, right now they're doing really well. I guess Ezra Miller's team's doing a really good job of making sure that they don't say anything and that they are in their little corner and just kind of keeping them away from the public spotlight. But eventually Ezra Miller is going to have to speak to promote the film. So that'll be interesting. But I don't know.
And he better be prepared. He's going to get questions about everything that happened all last year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But even on top of like scandal aside, their version of Barry Allen, I think, has just not been that interesting from, watching the Justice League movies and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see how this, obviously now Barry Allen being in the front of the center in his own vehicle, how Ezra Miller will pull that off.
They couldn't have found a worse way to introduce him. I mean, it's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, the way they introduced most of the characters in the DCU has not been great.
It's not been
for Superman, who I thought had a really good introduction. But it's just like, but everybody else kind of popped up in somebody else's thing. And
exactly.
It's like, how's that a way to introduce people to these characters? You could assume that people know these characters already, but that's still not smart. They're not like Spider-Man, who's had like his origin on TV like 1,000 times, or in movies like 1,000 times. So we've seen it a million times already. Or Batman, we've seen his origin a million times already. Some of these characters, a lot of people don't know their origins, and you should do something about that. But instead, they gave him these really weird, half-assed origins, and I'm just like, whatever.
And then, like, if it wasn't for the Zack Snyder cut, most of Cyborg's story wouldn't have even been noticed.
I forgot about Cyborg. I forgot he even exists. Honestly.
Well, I don't know if you remember this. They were going to make a Cyborg film.
Yeah.
It was in development, and then they shelved that. So, yeah, I don't know.
The only reason I get reminded about Cyborg is when Ray Fisher pipes up to complain about somebody.
Ray Fisher is the most outspoken actor of the whole entire DC.
He's mad. And he's just going to stay mad. He made a complaint about James Gunn too, not too long ago.
Oh, did he really? Oh my gosh!
Ray
Fisher is trying to not be Cyborg anymore. I guess I don't know. Like, don't do that.
I think he's and look, I will never forget being there at Comic-Con in Hall H when they brought out the whole Justice League. There was nobody happier on that stage than Ray Fisher. Because this was basically an actor nobody's ever heard of before. He was the least known of everybody on that stage. And he had this whole big, bright future ahead of him playing Cyborg at that time.
Yeah.
And it's just gone. And Ray Fisher is practically gone as an actor. Like, you never see him in anything. And if he is doing work, it's not work that's coming across my desk. So it's just like,
I don't know what
he's practically been erased. And every time he comes out and starts talking about somebody, it feels like he's trying to stay relevant, trying to stay out there. And he's got a reason to be angry. His whole career went poof. It sucks. It sucks.
And the treatment that he was given by Joss Whedon and all of that during the filming. I mean, I would be mad if you cut like a third of my story arc from the movie and nobody really knows much about the character to begin with. So
his whole character for the movie, you treat him like crap on set. The guy's got a reason to be pissed. I feel bad for him. I really do. I think it sucks. And I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else to really shine and do something in a role that can make him famous the way he was going to be. But
I got to read up on what he's saying about James Gunn, though, because I'm like, what did James Gunn
I'll see that. I'm sure it was on Twitter. I had to look it up, but he did say something about James Gunn too. I think James Gunn responded in his usual kind of, it wasn't anything like that. Sort of, kind of, James Gunn's so nice to everybody.
And he's very responsive on Twitter. Like when people, tweet at him, whether it's negative or positive, he usually responds back, which I find
Yeah, that's
Has to
one good
be.
thing about James Gunn taking over DC Studios is that he's going to be out there telling
Right.
you what's going on and answering
Yeah,
questions.
that's
Even
true.
if it's just to say this story is fake, this story is wrong. Even if it's just that. And he's
Yep.
going to be out there doing that, which I think is a good thing. And he doesn't seem to have the same kind of rabid base that Zack Snyder had that was just trying to bully people around. So
Yeah. Yeah, because that base is turning on him, obviously, creating these crazy hashtags. So
yeah, it's crazy. Well, that is the year in superheroes. This has been a lot of fun, Jamie. You got anything
yeah.
coming up at Black Girl Nerds you want to tell people about?
Look for us covering Sundance next month. Really excited for the films that are coming out. You can check out the YouTube channel. I did a nice roundup of the Black films that are going to be presented there.
Love that.
So yeah, really, really excited about that. And yeah, we're just doing our thing, covering the latest in entertainment and news and movies and television. So blackgirlnerds.com is the website. You can follow us on all the different socials. We're out there. We're doing it. So
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to Cinema Royale. I am Travis Hobson of Punch Drunk Critics. You can find me every single day at punchdrunkcritics.com. And of course, if you're here in the DC area, you can find me in a whole bunch of other places too. Just look me up. I'm not going to sit and roll through my credits. You already know what they are already. All right. Thanks again, everybody. I will see you next time. Goodbye. Thanks for checking out the show. If you like what we're laying down, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest stuff.